welcome back to 6 and 6, where we cover 6 stories from around the world in 6 minutes or less. With that said, start your timer. We begin today in Peru, where their upcoming election posed potential risks to its recent economic progress, according to the OECD. The organization is concerned that the political transition might disrupt economic momentum and investor confidence. Maintaining policy stability and continuing reform in public investments and taxation will be crucial for sustained economic growth. From Reuters, quote, Peru's economy has shown resilience in recent years. We urge policymakers to prioritize stability and consistency to further cement the economic achievements made. Ensuring the macroeconomic policies remain robust against the backdrop of political dynamics is essential for sustained growth. Next, we travel across the Atlantic to Morocco, where the authorities there have been suppressing youth-led protests demanding improvements in healthcare and education systems. The demonstrations, which began peacefully, have been met with a strong police response, including arrests and force. These protests reflected deep frustrations among young people about government neglect and lack of meaningful reforms in critical public services. From Reuters, quote, we are tired of empty promises and neglect, said one anonymous protest organizer. Quote, our needs are clear, and we are simply asking the government to prioritize people over fruitless expenditures and bureaucracy, end quote. Back across the Atlantic, we go to WestJet, a Canadian airline who has reported a cybersecurity incident involving unauthorized access to passenger data. The breach was limited in scope, affecting a small amount of personal information. WestJet is actually actively investigating the incident, working with cybersecurity experts, and is in the process of notifying affected passengers while enhancing their security measures. From Reuters, quote, WestJet confirms that it recently experienced a cybersecurity incident resulting in unauthorized access to some passenger information. While the breach was contained to a small amount of personal data, the disclosure raises concerns about data protection practices of the airlines, end quote. And across the world to Afghanistan we go, which is experiencing a severe water crisis due to persistent drought conditions, forcing many wells to dry out. Children are being pulled out of school to help their families queue for scarce water resources. The situation dramatically illustrates the immediate and harsh impacts of a vulnerable community with limited infrastructure and lack of adaptive capacity. From Reuters, quote, the water scarcity in Kabul is becoming more acute by the day, as wells throughout the city increasingly fail to produce essential resources needed for daily life. The situation is affecting the most vulnerable members of society, children, who are now being pulled out of education settings in order to undertake hour-long waits in water queues, end quote. Next, we travel down south to New Zealand, where their largest dairy processor, Skinland Milk, has significantly improved its financial position by reducing the annual net loss to only 4.3 million from the previous year's 28.5 million New Zealand dollars. The company has agreed to sell its North Island land and a dry storage facility for roughly 177 million New Zealand dollars, a strategic move to strengthen its balance sheet and focus on core business operations. From Reuters, quote, this was a challenging year for Sinland as we navigate a post-COVID world and an evolving market landscape. Our partnership with A2 Milk remains strong, and we are committed to delivering high-quality nutrition. All that came from Grant Watson, the current CEO of Sinlat. Next, we finish up today in Europe, where Moldova's pro-European government is gaining political momentum, potentially securing a parliamentary majority. The Action and Solidarity Party is working to implement reforms and align the country more closely with the European Union. This shift represents a strategic move away from the historical Russian influence towards European integration and the democratic process. From Reuters, quote, with this vote, we are evidently moving towards a government that strongly favors further integration with the European Union. This could prove to be a historic political shift for Moldova, a country that has long been at a crossroads between East and West, end quote. And with all that, if you want to read any of today's articles, you can find all of them in the links in the description below the like and subscribe button. Also down there, you can find the podcast on Spotify, Pocket Cast, Podvine, as well as the Twitter handle at Your Daily Flip, where I post links to these episodes on Monday. These episodes on Tuesday, Thursday, as well as the normal podcast that's more America focused on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So, with all that said, there's only one more thing to say. Stay safe. Don't die.